FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
Well, there's no question that today's Russia is authoritarian. I have little time for discussing managed democracy or whatever, some liberal democracy, other kinds of democracy. I think you know democracy when you see it. But having said that, and it's mild authoritarianism, let's make no mistake about it. It's not harsh, it's fairly mild. But that's not the most important thing about Russia. The most important thing, this is kind of evident, the most important thing is that it's not a democracy that has failed. Because there never was a democracy in the first place in Russia in the 1990s. But rather an evolving capitalist society. And with good luck, this evolving capitalist society could develop into a democracy, which will take not years, but more likely generations. But not, hopefully not too many generations. Although occasionally Russia is called the Soviet Union Mark II or the Soviet Union USSR 2.0, I have a problem with these descriptions. As someone who lived in the Soviet Union, who served the Soviet Union in the military, today's Russia is pushed forward and powered by the two things that were absolutely antithetical to the Soviet Union. One is private property / money. The other thing is open borders and open minds. Well, not all minds are open, but many are. I'm slightly uncomfortable, and slightly is an understatement, uncomfortable with the focus that the Kremlin is getting in any reporting of Russia. Because I think that all Russia is not Putin's Russia. I don't live in Putin's Russia. I live in Russia, or the Russian Federation, if you want. And frankly, what's happening in Russia at large is so much richer, so much more interesting, and I would say encouraging than what's happening in the walled city. As I look out of my window in central Moscow, I see two large billboards. There are lots of billboards in Moscow these days. One says, and that was put up by the Kremlin's principal party, political party, in the run-up to the parliamentary elections this coming December. It proudly proclaims that Putin's plan is a victory for Russia. Fine. But there's another one, which for me is slightly more interesting. It advertises a leading business daily in Russia, and it pictures the front page of the paper, and it says, our newspaper has 95,401 subscribers who are dollar millionaires. And then there's an asterisk saying, certified by the data provided by so-and-so. And this is, for me, a tale of two cities, if you like. There's the city called the Kremlin, right? And there's Mr. Putin there, and there's his party, and there's his managed vertical of power and all that stuff. On the other hand, you have 95,401 declared dollar millionaires, those who are paying taxes, in the city of Moscow and slightly elsewhere in Russia. I'm thinking about which of those two billboards is going to last longer. And my hunch is that it's the second one. Russia will be progressively owned by more and more people. And that's where I lay my hope. Well, people call me an optimist. I don't consider myself to be an optimist. I think the optimists were those who thought that Russia would become a democracy within 10 years. Those were optimists. But that kind of optimist leads you to pessimism within the same 10 years. If you rely on something else, if you are neither optimist nor a pessimist, but you are a student of what's happening around you, then you start thinking that if a country gets more and more owners, people with a stake, people who are keeping their millions in Russia rather than in Luxembourg or Zurich or you name it, these people have an obligation to their capital. You cannot ignore governance. If you are just a salaried worker, you can somehow move along. But if you have capital, if you have money to defend, property to defend, then you have to defend it. And participation is important for you. You cannot rely on a system that only has one decision maker. You cannot put up endlessly with a kind of corruption that is now widespread in Russia. Russian corruption is perhaps unique among other nations' corruptions in the sense that it's non-performing. You pay and nothing happens. And at some point it will drive you crazy, and you might start thinking about ways of changing the system. Having spoken about the millionaires, what perhaps makes me a bit more, again, I don't like the word optimistic, but what encourages my thinking and my, quite frankly, staying in my country is what I call IKEA index. There's the Freedom House index, that's fine, and I wouldn't dispute that very much. But there's another one which I would put next to it, and that's the number of Russian cities that have IKEA stores. Well, IKEA stores, as we all know, have little interest for most of the 95,401 millionaires. But for the common people, for the people who are making money and working hard to get their money, that's something. And those stores are full.